Welcome, everyone. It is May 21st, 2024. This is our 9 a.m. board briefing meeting. Please let the record reflect that in the conference room, we have Commissioners Waldrop and Kearns. We are joined virtually by Commissioner Jordan at his mobile office, and we should be joined shortly by Commissioner Cuny. But just going to kick things off. We're going to start today with a presentation from Under Sheriff Kevin Ritchie. You got a couple of topics you're briefing us on.
So yeah, I've four things. The first, I'll go over the first two things. It'll be very easy, I think. There's a renewal of an MOU between Spokane County Sheriff's Office and Partners with Families. Partners with Families of Children are the entity that do all of our forensic interviews, children's interviews. We pay them $30,000 a year. That's not changing from up here. It's going to be a rollover. They have asked for more money, but they asked for it after the budget cycle is done, so we're looking at it next year to give them. They haven't had a raise in a while. They do a lot of work for us. I can next year when we ask for an increase, I'll bring in some stats to show you kind of all the the interviews and everything they do. So their workload has gone up, but that's coming. That's the renewal of that. Then there's an extra duty employment contract. It's the agreement with our extra duty coordinator. The reason it's so late this year is because there was concerns over the compliance with the 1099 IRS regulations, and so this contract has been gone over a lot and rewritten. She did ask for a slight raise. We negotiated a 3% raise from what she was getting the last couple of contracts. This is a 3-year contract instead of a 1-year contract, and so you can see the numbers in there. Her annual salary will be, or not salary, but annual stipend that she's paid is $23,697. And it goes up 3% a year for the next 2 years. But this is covered through the contracts for the extra duty employment, so it should be a wash, and it's no cost to the county. Any questions about those two? And then next week it's on the agenda. She just mentioned I could brief it this week. It's the Criminal Justice Training Commission. They have requested one of our deputies take over TAC duties for the academy, and the contract is going to be to compensate us for their salary. So they'll be paying for the TAC officer's salary while he's doing those duties. So that contract is coming next week. If you guys have any specific questions, I can come back and answer those next week. But if not, then that's what that's for. It's just a compensation for his duties. So. All right, then the fun one. Oh, Scott.
Will that be a full time? And for how long?
It will, and I cannot. I don't have the contract in front of me, so I don't know. It's for the duration of however many academies there are.
Okay.
He's covering the current academy that's out of the Spokane Police Academy, and there's potentially he can cover some additional ones. So it'll probably be through the end of the year at least. All right, then the fun one. So as you know, Axon is our body worn camera provider. They are also the provider of our evidence management system, our internal affairs program, the tasers, and several other different programs that we use them for. Currently, we have 5 different contracts with them. We signed our initial contract. I think it's been 2.5 years now, and it was for 242 licenses, and those cover our deputy bundles, which is the taser, the body camera, access to all the programs, evidence.com, and all that stuff. We're out of licenses, and so we need more. So this is a contract to extend that out to 267 licenses. But our contract with Axon ends at the end of August of next year. So Axon, we began negotiating what our next contracts are going to be, and their prices have gone up significantly. And so what they offered us is a 10-year contract with fixed costs for the next 10 years. That's the good news. And also, and with this 10-year contract, we get everything. We get all of their tech. So they're coming out, there's a new taser program or a new taser system coming out next year called Taser 10. And it's a new updated taser. It's a lot better. I mean, we could have a whole presentation on the Taser 10 and all its capabilities. It's gonna be a really, really cool tool. They've been using it down in Phoenix and a couple other agencies for a while now, and it's a really good system. They're updating their body cameras, they're updating everything, and so this 10-year contract covers everything that we use with Axon currently, to include adding a couple other systems that they've acquired. The bundle price, the old bundle price for the per officer was $209 a bundle. It's now gone up to $346 per month per officer for the bundle. They are offering to for the next 10 years keep it at the current rate for the next 10 years without any increased costs. We have the fleet cameras, which are cameras for the cars. We have 2 of them right now, and we pay $31,000 a year for those 2 cameras. We want to increase that to 10 because our real-time crime center system works really well with their fleet system. And we can use those fleet cameras as another part of the real-time crime center as well, but for real-time access. So there's a whole bunch of things coming. Oh, and the other thing they're throwing in is unlimited third-party storage. So right now we're using servers to store third-party data, which is anything that's not recorded by Axon. So PDR records, any evidence that a citizen uploads goes into a server. Those servers are full, and IT came and said that we need to buy new servers. Yeah, and those servers are very expensive. And it took us about 2.5 years to fill up what we have. And so it's only getting worse, and we're getting more and more data. And so I don't know, some of those servers are $500,000 a piece for extended. Anyway, so that's an expense that's coming. They are including in this 10-year contract at the same cost, right? So if we were to sign this contract now, in August, the price, we currently pay $66,149 a month. The new cost is $110,954 a month. So it's an increase of $44,800 per month for this contract. But the good news is it's the same for the next 10 years. It's not going to go up again. If we don't sign the contract, we'll probably do another 3-year contract at the new rate, and then whatever rate, in 3 years after that it goes up to. But it's gone from 209 to 346 per officer per month. So I don't know what it's going to be in 5 years, 6 years. So the delta in this year's budget, if we sign it this year, we would need. If we sign it in August, it'd be another 5 months. It'd be an additional $224,000 this year for this contract, and that's with all the new licenses, with all the new tech, with unlimited third-party storage. We're going to absorb. They've absorbed DroneSense, and so that'll be included in the contract. And we pay $60,000 a year for that, so that'll be rolled into this contract at no additional cost. Evidence.com. Our evidence management system, our IA system is all through Axon, and then also they're developing CAD in the future too. So that may be something that's coming too. That's the good and the bad news.
So when was the last time that we when did we sign the contract last? Is this like a 5-year mark or?
It's a 3-year. It was, I believe there were 3-year contracts, and then we did. So like I said, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 different contracts with them, and those are because we needed more licenses. We needed more tasers. We needed. There's an $81,000 contract. I'm not sure what it is. It's for increased costs, basically. I think I wasn't involved with the initial contract, but when it was negotiated, I don't think we had enough bundles or enough licenses for the positions. Like we didn't consider that, the PDR staff needed licenses and STAs that pull reports needed licenses as well, so we had to add.
Because it
those
was like
things.
3 years ago that we just started the body cameras. That was, this was our
It-
first.
it-
foray.
Yeah, I was just thinking,
It's up in August of
probably
next year.
negotiated it right before the inflationary period really
Oh, yeah.
started, so I'm not surprised that. So what you're saying is if we did a 3-year contract, it would be this same increase.
So the first,
Would there be no difference with this 10-year? From if we did a 3-year to a 10-year with the cost per officer?
if we did a 3-year contract, it would be at the rate of the the bundle would be $346 for the next 3 years per officer, per license, per bundle. They call it bundle, but it's basically a license per officer. And like I said, we need more of those. We've reached our capacity. And so we'd be paying the $1.3 million a year anyway for the next 3
Right,
years.
okay,
If we lock it in now, it's 1.3, it's 1.3 plus. It's about 1.32 for the first year, and then it goes down to just barely right at 1.3 for the next 9 years. The first year is bigger than the next 9 years. They have to recover some costs. And there's also, we have equipment that they say they'll give us credit for, but we don't know exactly how much that's worth. It's around $100,000 that we'll be getting back.
and it includes this new taser upgrade?
Yes.
So there won't be any additional costs that we're aware of?
Nope.
Unless we wanna make a change?
If we add, let's say, all the stars align and we fill up all of our positions and then decide to add 20 more positions that we're able to hire, then we need more licenses. That's it.
At the bundle price.
Yeah.
So to lock in for a 10-year, so are you guys happy with it? Do you really like
Well,
what they're doing, and or are you feeling you're forced now that we've gone down this path that it's too hard to undo it? And
No.
so, and then I'm gonna ask about competition for that too.
sure. So I would say with Axon, what I can say is they kind of have the market cornered, but they do a really good job at it. And I think that's why they have the market cornered, is because they develop products that work really well with law enforcement, and they listen to law enforcement. They hire former law enforcement to do their product research and development and their sales and their training and all that stuff. So I mean, I'm not here to sell Axon, but they know what they're doing and they're doing it really well. Their mission statement or their vision for their company is to, end killing in law enforcement. I mean, that's what Rick Smith, their CEO, preaches, and they're doing their best to get there. I mean, they see a vision of a future where police don't even have firearms, right? And that's their vision. So they're all in, and they're acquiring everybody. So Fusus is another thing. So Fusus is the management system for real-time crime centers. They acquired them, and that's being thrown into this for free too. Right now we're using Flock, as you know, but that contract is up in 3 years, and so we'll see what Fusus looks like in 3 years. I don't want to speak for Justin or what the real-time crime center is doing, but we may not need that operating system for 3 years. So there's
You guys are happy with it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And the Taser 10 is, I don't know if you're familiar with tasers, and right now I think we're at the Taser 7. And they have a cartridge and
No,
Each-
not familiar.
each-
I'm not familiar
each
exactly.
cartridge shoots out 2 probes, right? And the probes have to touch a subject to initiate the
Current.
current, and then that incapacitates the subject. Well, Taser 10 has 10 separate probes, and so you can incapacitate theoretically 5 different people with one taser, because there's 10 shots, and they're individual shots. The range is out to I don't even want to quote it. It's something like 50 yards. It's a lot, and maybe 50 feet. I'm sorry, 50 feet. But you shoot one probe and then another probe, and that incapacitates. Then you can turn and go to another subject, and then another subject, and you can do 5 different people, right? If you get good shots. If you don't get good shots, you just shoot again, and it's pretty crazy. Oh, and another thing that's included in this is they have a new virtual reality training that I've been through it, and they're basically the virtual reality headsets, and they supply them with however many we need, and we can do training at roll calls for tasers. We can get people certified in tasers at roll calls, whereas it would take us an entire in-service to get people. So, I mean, they're constantly developing new things and improving on it, so
And if we're locked into a 10-year contract, will they continue to help?
we get it all. Yeah.
Okay. I see Commissioner Jordan, you raised your hand.
Yeah, any idea of like numbers of how often the tasers are being used? I'm just curious if there's any data, looking at over a couple of years.
I don't have that with me, but I could get it. Every one of our officers is issued and uses and carries a taser, so they're. It would be quite significant, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could forward me anything you have, just curious. Very interesting. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions?
I know it's a lot, but I don't. Oh, and you were gonna ask about competition, I believe.
Yes.
There are other companies that have a body worn camera system like Motorola and there's one other, I can't think of the name right now, but the only problem with them is they're not as robust and they don't have the total. They don't have everything else that Axon does. They don't also have an evidence management system and the performance and all this other thing. And there's another program in here I forgot. It's called Axon My90, and it's something that I'm going to be working on the next for a little just to implement possibly. But it's a system that tracks. It's like a survey system for law enforcement. So like an officer goes to a call and performs a service or whatever, the citizen can get on and actually rate. Oh, we thought it was good. Like you do. Rate services for different things. This is a system that allows them to do that. So that's another thing they're doing. I haven't even opened up all of the different programs that we can implement.
Commissioner Jordan?
Just to make sure I'm understanding, are you saying that for this year, there has to be some kind of budget amendment or change to what's currently budgeted? And can you kind of explain what was budgeted? What was the expectation that was kind of baked into this year's budget for the program?
So yes, and for this year's, the budgeted amount we have is 60. I have it broken down by month. It's $66,149 a month that we're paying to the Axon contract. And whenever we sign the contract, that will go up, or whenever it's implemented, that'll go up to $110,900 per month. And so it's a $44,800 difference. So if we sign the contract in August or it's implemented in August, it'd be a $224,000 increase for the year. And I don't know if we can absorb it or not. I don't know. It depends on what we have left over. I just don't know.
You read my mind for the next question.
That would be a Randy question.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Sorry, Randy's sitting over there in the corner. I mean, I guess it's not a huge change like in our overall budget, so I would hope that we'd be able to manage that, as we get towards second half of the year. But I guess I don't know what other the sheriff's budget's doing to date.
I would look to the sheriff's department finance team to help the board understand how that's going to fit in overall, because they've got the team that manages their budget and should be able to provide that feedback back to them.
I'm giving you a heads up on this, and the reason is because we don't have to do this year. We can wait till next year and do it, like I said, a 3-year contract. It's going to go up, but I wanted to know if the board was comfortable going down this path right now, because they're offering this now. I don't know what they're going to offer next. It's a company. I don't know what they're going to offer next year. So if this is something, because I haven't signed anything yet, we haven't obviously done anything yet. So if this is something you are okay with pursuing, I will continue down this path. And then in August or June or July, coming to you with a new contract signed. So I guess I'm looking for direction.
No, I mean, I guess I guess to me, if we can lock into a 10-year versus, every 3 years it's gonna go up. And if they're willing to do that and you guys are happy with them. And there's not a lot of competition out there. They're tending to, kind of. Figure out what's best and how to, they are the premier ones, I know.
For the best,
For law
yeah.
enforcement, so.
I'd
be happy to have you continue.
I guess the way I look at it is it's gonna be a hit for the next few years, but I think whoever the board is in 2030 is probably gonna be, thanking us for doing this because it'll.
Yeah. It'll change a lot.
Well, I'm okay with you moving forward with finalizing the contract, but to Scott's point. We've had several different presentations about some other expenses for the real-time crime center that potentially aren't budgeted at least next year. So I just think it's important that if you guys can manage it within the budget and find savings from other areas, right? Like maybe personnel that you haven't hired or what have you, then I think it's good business budget management to just look and see how you're going to be able to cover it within the budget. That's the same thing I said with the real-time crime center software purchase. Well, how are you going to manage that in the budget? Because if we don't have the general, we don't have endless general funds. This year was pretty tight.
No, and absolutely, and I, I'll Chris and I and Celia, when she gets back, will sit down and see what our projected savings are, for unfilled, we have several unfilled positions, so we'll see what that's looking like.
And Kevin, you've also had some savings in training that, so.
Yep.
Because you're doing more at the new center.
And
Well, that's right.
and right, absolutely, we've realized some pretty significant savings in training because we're bringing classes in and not paying for them like we thought we were gonna have to, so. And we're looking at the exact same thing for next year as well, so. I'm becoming kind of the not so popular guy over at the sheriff's office because I keep making people save money in different places, so, which is nice, right? It's what I.
Are you wearing your city council member hat?
Yeah, absolutely, it's what John wants me to do, so, we've been cutting costs, I think, pretty significantly in some key areas, so. And we're gonna keep doing it. I wanna lay the numbers out so you see what they're gonna be, and I'll do my best to chip away at it to make them as close to zero as I possibly can, so.
But I agree with Commissioner Chair CUNY that, I think a 10-year contract sure makes sense. Let's lock it in.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Jordan?
Just want to say I agree. Sounds like a good direction. Let's just have the pay for conversation at the same time. So thanks for the information.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
All right. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were supposed to be there till 9:50.
I know. 950. Oh, geez.
There you go.
Anything else you want to talk?
I was just at the Police Foundation breakfast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Chandra's here, so we'll go ahead and just keep moving. Good morning, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Okay. So I actually need to defer to Scott, because I'm not fully, I don't have all the details on the question.
We'll have Jeff come in as well. We just learned last night that one of our demo and debris contractors, demo and debris removal contractors for the fires, maybe doing some illegal dumping. And so we just wanted to ferret that out and see if that is in fact occurring and whether or not we need to engage some of our solid waste on a compliance side. So just wanted to see what
Is that something we want to be discussing in open session?
it's managing a contract. So
Potential litigation?
We don't know that right now. We haven't even reached out to the contractor. So
Certainly sounds like it could, though this is the first I'm hearing of it, so I don't know. Don't know enough either, but it certainly sounds like potential litigation to me.
So the contractor in question, I'm aware of one issue where they were utilizing an individual's property to stage debris before they moved it and disposed of it. That situation was untenable with the property owner, and so that particular situation was remediated. That's the only thing I'm aware of. I'm not aware of any illegal dumping in other areas, so that would be new information to me.
okay. Maybe one and the same. We just wanted to see if there was anything that our solid waste team needed to get involved with for compliance, enforcement sort of stuff, but sounds like it was just that one particular instance.
Honestly, I'm not sure, so I think we need to figure out if it was other locations than just that one property. Because I spoke to that property owner personally, directly, and so that's how I know that one is resolved. So if there are other individuals saying they're dumping in other areas, then that's going to require additional investigation.
So we can do some more work and get back to you on it.
We'll look into it some more.
And Heather also wanted to bring up some billing just for your awareness, as we've had some rounds of bills come in.
So we were able to get all of the DRC bills while you were out, finally. But we do have some excessive bills to look at. We had 4 bills that came in over $178,000. One was over $400,000. So we'll have to, Chandra hasn't even had a chance to look at those yet because I got those last week. But we have quite a few that had a number of cars removed, which are typically not allowed unless they meet certain requirements. And there's not a lot of detail behind them, so we don't know why they were so excessive over all the other ones.
Most of the bills have been 60 to 100,000. The variance, depending if there's asbestos or not, but then they have, one over 400, one in the upper 300s, one in the upper 200s. And when we look them up on Scout, they all appear to be normal. It's not like we're cleaning up the Davenport Hotel here. They're all normal 2,000 square foot or less homes. That doesn't give us reason to understand. We have the questions out, but just want you guys to be aware of these issues. And we are meeting tomorrow, a group of us, to go over a lot of this, so there'll be more information.
We've got a June 30 timeline coming up here for expending the funds. I think the reimbursements have to be submitted by the 15th of July.
Yes.
So time's ticking, and we want to make sure that all of the work that was eligible to be done has been done and invoices are received, and making sure the reimbursements are covered by the funds we've got from the state.
That'll be all on tomorrow's agenda.
Do you have any questions?
Nope.
I mean, the fire recovery stuff for you?
We've got, like I said, we have a meeting tomorrow.
More to follow.
Everything?
For now, and more to come later, possibly as a result of the meeting tomorrow.
Okay. George. Well done.
Really moving along on the agenda today. So we're here to provide an update regarding the HERE program. So this is the home electrification and appliance rebates program offered by the Department of Commerce. So we came to you all several months back to request approval to put in an application. We requested about $3 million from the state to administer this program countywide. And we received initially $1.4 million award. And then we just this last week got an update from Commerce that our award was bumped up to $1.5 million. So just over $100,000 additional funding there. So we have this contract in hand now, and we're looking for approval to execute the contract. I brought Brittany Reed with me. She's one of our team members here. She's going to be taking this project on herself and administer the request for proposal process and everything. So I just asked Brittany to provide a few statistics on where we're going next with this.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome, Brittany. Thanks, glad to be here. Yeah, so like he mentioned, our award was up, so those numbers that you're seeing are not quite accurate. They're not too far off though, since we don't have too much more money than originally awarded, but we are closer to 1.5. And so we're looking at a little bit more admin up there. We're hoping to keep about 100,000 for ourselves at least. But looking to kind of spread that out to some of our sub-recipients if we can. And then the small business is about 25% of what's left after admin, and then residential is about 75% is kind of the goal. That's not required, but that's just kind of what's recommended by Commerce to kind of keep it at that ratio there. So we're looking at pretty similar numbers, and then we want to kind of move on to the next. We're looking, as George said, to do a request for proposal to find a subrecipient to administer these funds. And then we're looking to hopefully contract for about a year with them, starting hopefully September 1st, ending August 31st. Right now we're drafting the RFP and working on the webpage as well. We're trying to get that moving along as quickly as possible. Hopefully releasing the RFP in the next couple weeks, and then coming back to you guys late July, early August at the latest. It's looking like late July will be doable, hopefully, if we can get everything going. But yeah, so.
So this is a new program, right, from Commerce?
It is, yes.
Okay, and with this, so what is the criteria that the residential people would be applying for? Is it within a certain income level? I guess some of that information just to understand a little bit more about the HIP program.
Yeah, so it's specifically for LMI households and then small businesses. So specifically for the residential, we're going off of those HUD income limits and looking at the LMI. And then they also are allowing, if they are part of a previous program that is income restricted, that is a qualifying factor as well for households. So we're looking at some of these programs, that are already running and have these people who have already qualified for their programs, and that would allow them to qualify for this as well.
Okay, is this something like SNAP would be, I don't know if they're looking at doing it, but would we be able to use kind of who they're helping with energy assistance maybe? And even talking to Vista, whoever, I guess, so part of the RFP process would be, how would somebody coordinate with like people that are getting energy assistance either through Vista or the utility companies? Because then that might be a way to get them into a more energy efficient appliance. I don't know, that's what it seems like this is about. That would help them as well, so.
Yeah, SNAP's a great example of organization that's already doing this type of work, both in the residential sphere as well as with the businesses. So we could potentially help out through their micro enterprise financial access programs. Some of the businesses out there to help find some energy savings, those sorts of things. So SNAP is a good example of someone who would apply for this request for proposal that has that. And that'll be something that Brittany's baking into that request for proposal, is that whoever's applying has the bandwidth to be able to administer a program like this, recognizing it's a limited term. So ramp up and everything will be part of our consideration so that we're not 6 months in before a program's actually able to deliver.
Yeah, well, I guess I would just, is there a way to, kind of request that they look at who's receiving, kind of energy assistance through the utility companies too, because they have their own programs too as well. Just so that, we're trying to help people that need the help, I guess, Mr. Baldwin.
Right, that's what I was thinking, Madam Chair, was that this really could be really well integrated with other assistance programs, right? So if someone's already getting some updates to their home, who already is qualified through SNAP for other, then they could potentially add on this appliance, right, as another element. So yeah, we'd really want to give extra points to organizations that are ready to make those connections and that integration right away. Not wait for an organization to have to start from scratch with identifying potential homeowners, right? Is it homeowners and business owners, right?
Small business.
Small business, okay.
And Brittany mentioned LMI, that's low moderate income, so we'd be looking at folks primarily at 80% or below the area median income. And really part of our stabilization strategies around folks that are residing in a single family residential home to keep them stably housed, so they don't fall into the network of services. So that'll be part of what we're looking for out of the sub-recipient.
I could see like working with AGM long-term care and some of those other organizations too. Yeah, keep people in their homes and lower their bills, hopefully.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Is Jeff gonna come through the door now?
I hear you.
Exactly. Jeff and Heather, you guys get to come back into the room.
Yeah, bang on the
I know.
wall there. Boom, boom.
We were debriefing with Chandra. It's like, oh, the table's empty.
Come on back.
So this round, we're here for some ARP recategorizations. I believe you've all heard about these at one point or another. We're at the place to actually get some resolutions before you at a future 2 o'clock, so I want to talk through them all. Fire District 10 at the top sent a letter, 2 weeks ago now?
Yes.
Letting us know that they were executing the termination clause for 913,000 out of the million. It was funding for some housing at the firehouse itself. And after they did some due diligence and some A&E, they realized the cost was going to be more than they had other funding for. ARP didn't cover enough to do a phase of the project. So their request at 913 will be coming back to us. And then you'll see right below it in red is the corresponding indirects, because we can't claim an indirect unless the money was actually spent. What we are suggesting is of the 913, putting 363 into revenue replacement. You'll recall 2 years ago at this point, the board had to make an irrevocable decision that could never be changed between a $10 million or the formulaic. We went with the formulaic because in year 1, we got 9.6+ million, and we thought in years 2, 3, and 4, we'd get more than 10, and revenue replacement is a more flexible pot. Years 2, 3, and 4, the economy came back quicker than people had expected in year 1 when the decision had to be made. We never qualified for additional funds. So one reason is to just top it off at 10 million. The bigger reason is saving staff time. They've changed that irrevocable decision that now we can, with all the rules changing. But the one thing they also said, if we stick at the 9.6, we're actually going to require all of our budget staff across all departments to do all the calculations. We know it's going to be 0 because our tax revenues have been up. And that would be countless hours we're asking to put in because they've changed their reporting that we have to actually enter all that data. So for us, it's really more about saving staff time than the 363,000. So it's kind of a win-win, a little bit more in revenue replacement, but it saves staff time. The remaining just shy of 550, we're suggesting move to category 3.2. And that comes into play as we keep going down. You'll recall we had discussion here. We've had a couple contracts where the work has been completed. They were RFP'd, but some of the required ARP language didn't make the contracts. It's just one of those issues. We contract with a group and then they contract with the end user. Heather doesn't see that in contract until we monitor. And in these situations, we realized we couldn't pay with ARP dollars, but the county is responsible because we have a contract between them. So we're suggesting we pay those two bills, the $873,000 and the $604,000 out of general fund. And then back to that public sector workforce category. That allows, there's a formula in, I think it's version 16 of the rules, don't hold me to that. I have it highlighted on my desk, if anybody wants to see it. That says you have a date certain, January 27th of 2020. You look at your number of staff, then you can increase it by 7.5%. And then you look at March 3rd, 2021, so approximately 13 months later, the date that ARP was signed into law. And if there's a delta between those numbers, you can assign new staff that has been hired. There's several different categories, but most of them are gray. We like this one because it's very black and white. If it's a new position that was created between those dates, fully loaded, staff, salary and benefits can be applied. So I personally qualify as that. Commissioner Waldworth and Jordan and their staff qualify. Arian, who is here working on ARP, qualifies. We have other, there's a new hire, there was a new position in the budget office with Randy. So Randy and I, along with Jason Metcalf and Ashley, have kind of gone through our staff at the county, and we've identified 15 to 20 positions. And if you take those over 5 years, because you can go back to that March 21 through the end of 26, and the position can, like, if I went away tomorrow and you replace me, the new person, it goes with the position, not the person. That gives us about $7 to $8 million of capacity. So those would be funds that are currently being charged to the general fund that would then be moved over to ARP to free up general fund money to pay for these, what were ARP, but we can't pay for ARP because the contracts weren't done to the letter of the law. So it's all the same work that's being done because of ARP dollars is still being done. We're just doing a swap to make sure when we get audited, there aren't challenges. Heather and I have been on a lot of NACO calls, a lot of WASAC calls. We are certainly not alone in the world of monitoring contracts, finding out some very specific minutia detail required by ARP. Didn't make it all the way down the food chain. So the roll up down at the very bottom in color, we won't be discussing the 363 to a top off revenue replacement, but the remaining 549,000 that would be coming back from fire district, the corresponding indirects from the full fire district, the West Terrace amount, which did not have indirects because that was a sole source contract, the parks and the associated indirects. And then you'll also recall we put funds into another staffing category for Scott Chesney for the comp plan. ARP also asked that if you have one subject matter, you put it into the same category and the category that has the biggest dollar amount. So that would also have us roll the 3.3 down to the 3.2. So it'd be roughly $2 million of general fund swap with the extra million plus that was in the Scott Chesney world, which would leave you at 3.2 million in category 3.2. I've noticed that one before. And with that, I believe we should question our bots.
Okay, so Commissioner Jordan, you raised your hand.
Just, Jeff, did you send this document out that you're referring to? I just haven't seen it yet.
Yes, I talked through it with Commissioner Waldriff and Chrissy on your staff last week. And so she would have it. We can resend it.
Okay. Thanks.
And so that would put the 3.182 into category 3.2. So is everybody good with seeing some resolutions? We might not get it done by tomorrow and then maybe next week. It'll probably be 2 weeks out. You'll see it on the 2P consent. And then the other piece, down the bottom is revenue replacement. So this is another product of ever-changing additions of rules from US Treasury. Originally, revenue replacement was the only reporting we had to do was say we're gonna move it to the general fund. Reporting was done, put it on the form, life is good. That has changed. And now revenue replacement needs to be reported on as any other category would be. You, as a board, had decided relatively recently, this calendar year, that that would be a pot of funds for the Monroe Court building. Because revenue replacement is now under the rules of the other categories require any ARP that's involved in a transaction, a capital transaction, that is over 10 million. It doesn't have to be 10 million of ARP. The transaction's over 10 million and there's ARP dollars in it. We have to write a justification, and different justifications at different levels, but the over 10 million, which is the highest level, they want you to justify why you did this versus any other use of the funds. And I don't want to be tasked with writing every single opportunity cost known to mankind that we could have spent this money on.
Come on, Jeff.
Aside from this, number one, I'd go
This
through
is your big moment.
multiple redwood trees worth of paper. So we're also suggesting.
Please don't cut down any redwoods.
Exactly. Save the redwoods. And so what we're suggesting, because revenue replacement can be used on any general fund purpose, but now we also have to make the ARP reasoning, just as we talked about moments ago, doing a swap, we can use revenue replacement just on staff. And so we could take the most recent $10 million worth of general fund staffing minus people like Commissioner Waldorf and I would be in 3.2, not include the 3.2 staffers, bill it out in this calendar year. We've already well over $10 million year to date in general fund staff. That way, that would increase the general fund by $10 million because we've taken those 10 million worth of expenses out. And then we'd be paying for the Monroe Court building with revenue replacement, and we don't have to do those reams of paper with the justification. It's very true that that purchase would only be made because there were ARP dollars, but the money wouldn't be there without ARP dollars. But when it comes to the audit, ARP dollars would have been spent on allowable salaries in the general fund, creating capacity for the building purchase.
So many questions. Okay, so, because how many times have things changed over the course of the ARP?
I believe we're on rule version 18. If we include the FAQs, I don't have a number for you right
So
now.
I mean, so it's like they keep moving the goalposts
So much so.
every time we try to think we've figured out what we're trying to do. So I completely applaud both of you for being on top of this and continuing to work with where those goalposts land each time, and doing what we need to do. The one thing I would say, and Randy, this is kind of us with the financial statements, is if we're shifting $10 million general fund, that we just make a note in the financial statements that this is kind of a one-time for federal, kind of like we do for accounting changes. Because what we saw several years ago when the 1/10 money came back into the general fund and then we had to go back to the special revenue fund, it shows that difference, and unions are looking at it. Outside entities are looking at our general fund and saying, oh, you have $10 billion more than you used to, and so I just want to make sure that from an accounting financial perspective, that in the financial statements themselves, we footnote that. to identify it. I know it seems like it's small, but you know, I mean, I remember when Mayor Freeman was using that, saying that, oh, we have way more money, our general fund has increased, and so we should be paying more money to the health district. It's like, well, it didn't increase, it just was a shift for accounting purposes, so, which is exactly what this is. And so I just want a reader of the financial statements, not that people read the financial statements, but just so that footnote is there historically to know why.
Well, and in 10 years, we're all gonna forget what happened in
Yes,
2024, so it'd be good for that
so.
historical footnote.
So just as we do that, I mean, I don't have a problem doing it. I think it's just good to note that that's what caused it.
Correct, and at least with the plan, our cash won't go up because we're just bringing it in and sending it back out.
Right.
But it's going to change the characterization inside, and that's what we will need to flip.
So again, no one else will ever notice or care, but I think it's just one of those things that I remember when Mayor Freeman was putting his spreadsheet together as to how much our general fund had increased. It's like, no, that was because we shifted from a special revenue fund of our 1/10 mental health dollars into the general fund, and then, you know, later we shifted it back, so.
A lot of jurisdictions that pay zero think we should pay a lot more for that.
Yes, there is that,
One thing I did want to point out,
But I digress.
the
still wounded by that.
the funding coming back from the irrigation ARP project that will be swapped in the general fund. There actually is 51,394 you see in the lighter gray off on the right. It is actually money coming back. That project actually came in under budget by just shy of 51,400. When we do this, that will actually give you 51,400 more in the general fund. So I just wanted you to be awareness of that. By starting this 3.2 category and the 15 to 20 people we've identified to date that qualify based on the formula provided by Treasury. As we have other funding changes for whatever reason with ARP, you know, the returns such as Fire District 10, they come in under budget, what have you. There would be another 5 million-ish in capacity against these wages over 5 years. That would allow us to deal with the money appropriately that it has been obligated. It will end up in the general fund, which at this point of the game, I think is the best bet for the board as we're coming to some strict deadlines with ARP. That way it will have been obligated against a county wage, a allowable category. We'll keep a running total for the board of, we're starting with $51,394, but there, you know, there is some extra money if the board wanted to spend it on something, but it will have met all the obligation requirements as we come to the end of this year and those deadlines. If the board wants to do some more RFPs, we will curse at you when we leave the room and then do them. But we are coming up to some timeline challenges against the reality of getting those done in a meaningful way. That's just the reality of where we're at with timelines. So having it in the general fund, if the board has a will to spend it, it would be in the general fund.
Yeah, and then we've already fulfilled our obligation to.
It wouldn't
the
require
federal
ARP
government, and we
reporting.
wouldn't have to do any different.
That would have already been taken care of against qualified wages.
Which I think makes sense. I mean, we want to get out of this reporting game that we seem to be in, where the goalposts keep changing. So the more that we can get out of that, the better. So I would agree, and then there's still opportunity to make choices.
Correct.
So.
No. So are you anticipating any other of the kind of public works or parks contracts? Are there any others out there that may not have put the necessary language in that I know moving forward, there's several contracts going in with the West Plains Park and the
Heather
Valley.
pulled them all.
But those are,
They've been fixed.
okay,
They were early enough in the process or the awardee was willing to amend their contract. That to our knowledge, to answer your question, yes, there were some other issues, but they were able to be accommodated.
So we caught these and then we're able to adjust any other of those contracts.
The piece we don't know is all the other external awards
Right.
and what might be going on there. That does give you some comfort.
So if you had an award, a contract with an organization that's helping small businesses recover from the pandemic and they have a subcontract, if they didn't put the proper language in, that could be a challenge.
Some challenge
But
there.
but they might have to absorb that themselves.
Well, the challenge is we would have a contract with them. I mean, I guess we could play hardball and say you didn't follow the letter of the contract and we don't reimburse them. But if we did reimburse them and we can't use ARP, we would also have to return that same dollar amount to federal treasury. So if we kept that small nonprofit whole, we pay double. Because we pay for that contract, pay them $100,000 for the work that was done, even though the contract was wrong. Worst case scenario in an audit, if the auditor said, this is more than a finding, you have to pay it back. We would also have to pay $100,000 back to the treasury, and we're paying $200,000, $400,000 more. That's the scenario I really don't want to find this in. We sent out 30-some certified letters yesterday. You'll recall the letter that went out in January that was fairly, I don't know if harsh was the word, but it was very bluntly worded.
It's to the point.
It was very to the point and very blunt. That went out to about 45. Nobody, not a single entity has sent us their plan based on what we requested. We did have about 5 entities that reached out with conversations, questions. So yesterday we sent out via certified mail, so it will be undeniable proof that it was received. And Heather actually just made, this is the plan, fill in the blank. We have committed to spending blank amount of money by blank date, and the RFP went out on blank, and it was really fill in your dates and your dollar amounts. Because if we don't start getting these plans back from these 35 entities, in about 6 weeks, we're gonna be coming before you with what is your level of confidence in this group? Do you think they're actually going to do what they've promised, or do we need to claw some of these funds back so that you guys are in better control? It is challenging to have someone else in control of your destiny. The county is the one that's gonna have to repay the money. The county is the one that will take the audit dings. But when we have sub-awarded this out to external groups, we're not in control of our own destiny. And so we gave them a 3-week period, so we should have this back by the end of the first full week of June.
And they're on their own audits at that point too, so it's not handled properly, it's on them to pay back the federal government, not on us.
No, because we're the one contracted with the feds.
Yeah, they don't have a contract with the feds, they're with us. So the choice the
They're
board,
having their own.
if they spend over 750,000 in federal funds, they have to have a single audit. But the board would have the decision of, we're choosing not to reimburse you. Not a place anybody wants to be with our partners in the community. We've awarded funds because we believe in what they're doing. And so they eat the cost, which could quite honestly bankrupt a lot of the groups. They wouldn't have the funding. Best case scenario, they'd be financially struggling. And so that's why we put this letter out yesterday. So we'll be back early June. As you recall, about half of our contracts actually expire at the end of June. Half of them expire in 2026. So some of these groups, if they don't reply, their contract could just expire. And then the board would have time to make decisions, whichever way you want to go. The contracts that are through 26. We have both sides, both us and the awardees have a 30-day sever of contract without cause. There's also for cause issues, but so the board could make the decision, you know, we don't have enough information, we're not getting timely feedback, whatever that issue would be. We could put out a 30-day cancellation like we did with the CLA contract when they didn't supply all the information. If you hear from these groups in the community complaining about this letter, a lot of the reality is we had relied on CLA as they had promised us that they were going to keep their website up to date. So when nonprofit XYZ goes into CLA to upload their information for reimbursement, if they're in category 3.2, you would have all the drop downs of what they need to supply, demographic data, whatever the data is. And you know, there's over 100 categories at this point and probably 50 different reporting possible combinations. So that software that we had purchased was supposed to trigger them. It never triggered them. And quarter after quarter, we were being told that it was going to be brought up to speed. And up until really fourth calendar quarter of last year, we didn't have a lot of reimbursements coming in. So it wasn't a huge issue because we thought CLA would get to it before the big funding came in. And we all know we severed that contract because it wasn't happening. About 2 months ago, we sent the letter. So these groups have all been told, they all know, but they've not been forced to do it because that website wasn't fully functional. So now we're forcing them. So don't be surprised if you hear from people, you know, in the community feeling maybe that they're getting a bit of a bait and switch. It's really not that. It's just the position we find ourselves in with ever-changing federal rules and the firm we contracted with to take care of these issues, that not panning out the way it was anticipated. But we have to hold their feet to the fire because that's our task. So, the era of Santa Claus is over. We are officially Scrooge.
On a brighter note, I think it's important,
Gosh.
it's important to emphasize that when all the dust settles on the things that Jeff and Heather presented today, the projects that the commissioners put out via RFPs and awarded are still getting done. They're still getting done. It's just a different flavor of the money, if you will, absent the Fire District 10 who voluntarily gave it back. So we're still meeting the spirit of what you all intended to do with putting this money out to work in the community. That's really the message to be able to send with all this stuff. We've just had to adjust to the ever-changing
rules. Yeah, so the spirit of ARP has been met. All of the stuff that's been put out in the community is still getting done. Some of it will be paid for with general fund, but only because ARP is allowing that extra funding. The one other piece I forgot to mention, you'll recall we also did a similar switcheroo when we found out we couldn't use the natural disaster category as match. We need a maximum of 1.25 million for our matching obligations. We put about 758,000 and change into it when the Museum of Flight, what's ours called? The Flight Museum, sorry. Went back to Seattle for a moment. When that award came back for all the reasons we know, we had some other funding that came back. It added up to 750,000. With this extra 550,000, the additional coming back from Fire District 10 above and beyond the maxing out revenue replacement, that takes us to just over 1.25 million. However, we've also discussed the Phelps Field hangar, which would qualify to go against ARP. If it's not with ARP, it would come out of the general fund, but because it wasn't in the 24 budget, it would come out of fund balance. if we put it against ARP, it's not actually freeing up 24 budget capacity because it wasn't in the 24 budget. If we, it's all gonna come out of county funding one way or the other. Just if we put Phelps Field into ARP, and we might need to spend some general fund then for our match balance. We could backfill that if we get some more returns. But just wanted to put that out there for awareness.
I think at some point we're gonna need the spreadsheet of what has
It
happened.
doesn't get better with the spreadsheet. It is still
It looks
so many,
terrible.
going so many different ways with all these changes. It's like,
It's like beyond a flow chart or any of that,
It's-
colors.
we usually do 4 to 5 tries before we get one that we think makes sense, and they're still challenging.
Commissioner Walter.
So at what are you thinking in terms of the timeline for the contracts we have out with community partners? You know, how late can we go in the year to allow them to have their plan, get their RFPs out, show that they have a way to spend the money that's reasonable, you know, by the end of 2026? What is the timeline for which you will come back to us as the board and present some recommendations on next steps with those groups?
So there's 2 different timelines. We have when we first started ARP, we were making all the contracts expire June of 24.
Okay.
Just to force
June
this.
30?
June 30 of 24. It's the end of a quarter. It's also the end of the ARP annual year. Like the state budget, ARP is on a June to June. And then partway through, we had some groups that were pushing for more time. We ended up switching it over to 2026 for the remainder. So for those under 2024, you're gonna have to make a decision by the end of June if we're going to give an extension or not. So that's roughly half of them. Those that do have the December 26th date, I think we need to look at everybody in June and look at them together. And then those that expire in 24, if you want to give an extension, that's certainly within the purview of the board. I would say final decisions need to be made by Labor Day-ish, because we have to do a 30-day notice, which would then put us into October. And if there's funding coming back, I would assume you'd want to have time to incorporate that in your budget conversation.
I mean, it can just go into reserves and we can figure that out, but
It could. Now, if you're gonna do additional RFPs, I would ask you do it in July. But if it's gonna come back to the county against wages, but bottom line, it would have to be done by the end of December. So
when you say the contracts expire, was the expectation that the community partners that received the contracts, or the small cities, whoever received the contract, that they would do the majority of the work by the end of 2024, or how is it written? Maybe it would be good to look at it.
But those funds would be under contract by then for what they're doing.
The work's gotta be done by the end of 26.
But it was either
But when
they
you
had
say that,
spent it themselves, if they did it themselves, or they had subcontracts in place.
so they can
and
show,
then-
we have a subcontractor that we have hired that's going out and doing small business consulting to help businesses recover. This person's gonna
We could
keep
look at that
contracting for the next
contract.
2 years or whatever. Okay,
We could check, make sure it was done correctly, made all the rules.
okay, so that was the expectation
That was the expectation
by the
all
end of
along.
June.
So
So
that's one
these
rule that
letters,
has never
I mean,
changed.
These letters are, I mean, the feds have moved
A lot of
the
goals.
goalposts here and there, but the letter, the contracts always said by the end of June 30, of the ones that go to the end of June 30, we're expecting all these subcontracts and RFPs to have been completed or in progress so that we know you can spend the dollars effectively.
Cause in that moment, the board wanted to have enough time
Right.
to do additional RFPs and go back
Okay,
out.
so we're really kind of still on that same track.
We are, it's just now it's here.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about 12 months from now, it's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
than 6 weeks.
So,
That-
so like,
that's-
we're meeting with Launch West later this week. And they're working on their RFPs to have everything contracted out before, the end, the end of June.
And Heather and team are monitoring now the groups that have really spent money, which help find and correct. But we have 15-ish contracts that have not spent a dime. And they've not communicated with us very much. So we're not monitoring them because there's nothing to monitor yet. They're not responding to us. We have, Heather or I have personally called every single non-completed contract this calendar year. We have sent emails, now we're sending certified mail.
Can you send us an email list as who isn't responding? Because I think
The last list we got was probably close
Yeah.
to 2 months ago, so.
Like
We
2
can
months
update
ago.
that.
And then, I mean, I know I worked on my people
Well,
to,
you know, the calls you guys made were very helpful, multiple, if not all 5 of you made calls to different groups. We've talked to some groups that, oh yeah, we're scheduled, it's gonna happen this summer, which is a common thing, and it's a logical thing if it's an infrastructure. But you know, I guess we're not officially in summer yet, but we're certainly in construction summer. We're in construction season and we have some groups out there. You know, we're not hearing from, we have one engineering firm that has they're the engineering for about 4 or 5 different contracts. So thankful, like, talked to that guy. He gave me a lot of feedback on multiple. But yeah, it's just, the fear is, have they done it all right? Because now we're at the point, you know, if they do the project, yay, that's what we want the money for. But if it's not done right, we need to do these swap-a-roos this calendar year, starting January 1st. You know, even what is a good news, we're getting 51,000 back because that bid came in under contract. If that happens January 1st, you write a $51,000 check to the treasury. We don't get to keep it. So that's another reason we're trying to force all these groups by 2024. Because if there's money coming back, like the small town of Fairfield, they paid the full bill, we reimbursed the full bill. And then the company goes, oh, we double charged you for something, we're sorry. They sent $5,600 check back to Fairfield. Fairfield gave it to us because that's where it originated from. And yay, we had $5,600 that went into what we're trying to gather for fire recovery funds. If that story happens after January 1, we don't get to keep that $5,600. So we are truly pushing people right now to have hard contracts, do as much of the work as you can now, get it going, because even the best laid plans, nobody at fault, just a reality could end up with money going back to the feds.
Yeah.
And we're doing our best to not have that situation.
well, if you can send us who's not responding, that we need to follow up with, then us as commissioners, would be happy to help follow up.
That'd be awesome.
So now we've all been told the same information today, so.
And we can also send around, we'll send around a copy of just electronically, but the hard copy letter that went out. Which
Yeah.
also included a second hard copy of the letter that went out in January. So it had the new letter, the old letter, the fill in the blank form, and a copy of multiple pages of rules. You are in category whatever. These are your compliance rules. We had different compliance rules depending what categories.
So we just want to help you. So that's,
We'll take all the help we
that's the bottom line. We want to help you make it easier, because you guys are really putting in all the hard work. So I, appreciate that. Thank you. But, let us, if we can help you, make contact with, certain entities. And then, like I said, I know we've got Launch West coming in this week to have this conversation, make sure they're going to be doing everything correctly.
And there's a lot of groups that we have a lot of communication with too. So
Yeah.
I should say that.
But it's really the ones we want to help you, the ones that aren't responding back.
We tend to speak to the more challenges.
Well, because I just remember after, the spring when Scott and I met with Albert Tripp, you know, suddenly then finally got back to you guys.
He did.
So,
I've submitted a $690 bill. Out of 1.5 million.
yes,
I actually thought the decimal was on the wrong spot.
so maybe.
I double checked and it wasn't. It was
Yes.
actually for $690.
So Commissioner French may get to follow up again, you know, so, but those are things that, yes, I mean, that is just gonna help you too, so.
We appreciate that. Commissioner phone calls usually are higher up the food chain on the, so.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Okay, well, thank you.
So you'll see these probably in 2 weeks on the 2 p.m. Both the revenue replacement, they'll probably be like 5 or 6 resolutions to accomplish today's conversation, but
Not as simple as it.
none of us, no, we'll get on it.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, appreciate it. Okay, that's gonna take us to, concludes our, all our other items. Is there miscellaneous items, any?
Yep, I got one quick one. The city of Airway Heights, the police department reached out they would like to renew their agreement for hearing examiner services and prosecutor's office services to handle their forfeiture matters. These usually come under drug cases and other fraud cases as well. This agreement, it was originally entered in 2021. I think it expired in 22 or 23. And then the need rearose, so they are asking to renew it. We've gone through the agreements and kind of updated all of the rates and terms and everything else, and I think those are just about ready to go. So unless there are questions or concerns, we'll have that ready for next week.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, just highlighting some good media we got. I think Pat sent out to everyone, the Inlander had a good article on the opioid settlement funds, kind of follow up on what the spokesman did last week. So the county and the commissioners are getting some good highlights on that.
good. And Pat, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was just gonna second that the Inlander article came out good. The spokesman article, very fair coverage. So I'll circulate those if anybody hasn't seen them. We're also working on a release for closures over Memorial Day, and we're working on a release with the assessor for an issue that he wants to get out. So those are 2 or 3 of the priorities. Also mentioned last week that Commissioner Waldriff's Spotlight will be airing. That'll be coming out, and we'll get that out on YouTube as well on Expo 74. So thanks.
Very good, thank you. Okay, anything else? And then,
Well, I also thought the coverage, that great photo of the students walking in the water with the high waders on,
yeah.
was great out at Doris Morrison. So thanks to Martha Lou for organizing that media opportunity. I wasn't able to go out, but it looked like the kids were a little nervous looking, but like so enjoying a new experience, you know?
Well, the previous week when the temperature was 80 degrees and a number of them
That
fell
would've
in,
been,
kind of fell into the water. It wasn't so bad on this past Friday. It was a little chillier out there. But I think I talked with one of our individuals who helps kind of interact with the schools, and by the end of this year, all 5th grade classes through Central Valley and East Valley will have made it through. And
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah.
They used to go out to Liberty Lake Park, you know, and do their thing there, but that was part of why we wanted to, you know, I knew that. And so part of why we wanted to make sure that this was really able to work with the kids, because it's part of the 5th grade learning.
curriculum.
Curriculum, so that they go out and do, and, you know, an outing. And so they used to be at Liberty Lake State Park, and this is just a much better situation, so they can have inside classroom space, clean up, all those things, so.
And we could have done it without I think I've learned that we have 240 volunteer hours and about 20 people from various Audubon Society and others who have volunteered their time to help bring the students through these classes. So I want to make sure we do a shout out to them. I think that was also highlighted in that article.
Yeah, so it's great. So it's been, and I gotta excuse me, a call from Ben here recently too, that he's just super excited and super happy with how everything's going. So it's just really great. Pat, you raise your hand
Yep.
again.
I was just going to add back, I had on my list, I forgot to mention it. We are helping building and planning get the word out about the comprehensive plan 2026 kickoff forums. That's on our social media for any commissioners. I know several of you have already liked, commented, and shared and put it in your newsletters. But those meetings are coming up. Good opportunity for the public to get involved, learn more about the process. There's also a Zoom link. It looks like Building and Planning is offering a virtual option as well, and ability to send in comments through their website. So for anyone looking for comprehensive plan information, planning process, that's on our social media. And I know we're working on a release as well. Martha Lou's out today, but I'll try and pick up the ball on that. There's a series of these upcoming meetings around the community. It's not just one. I think there's a half a dozen, and some additional time and locations are being confirmed. So stay tuned for that as we get the message out to the public.
Yeah, and along with that, Pat, I was just at a meeting yesterday and Mayor Kamiskas from Liberty Lake had mentioned it as well, that she'd be happy to send out information. So I think if we could get to the PIOs of the cities to let them know as well and have them put it out, you know, for within their areas as well. It's just the more we can get it out there and get people engaged, the better.
Good idea. I will share it forthwith. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we did add, the planning department did add 2 additional locations, as Pat mentioned. The 2 new ones are Liberty Lake and Deer Park. I think we've got pretty much the corners of our county covered in some of our major metropolitan areas, plus some of the outlying cities as well.
So those 2 just got added.
They'll be added on the release, yeah. They
Okay.
were waiting on some confirmations from where the location and the dates on locations, yeah.
Can you just, then for my benefit, I apologize if I've missed it, just send us that updated list so that way we've got it, all the commissioners, so we know.
Certainly.
Commissioners ourselves as well as our assistants, so that way we've got it and can get them on our calendar just in case we can make them or not.
Will do.
Thank you.
I believe the locations are Cheney, Medical Lake, Airway Heights, City Spokane Valley, Deer Park, and Liberty Lake.
Yeah. Which is why I think getting to those cities, PIOs, to have
That's a
them
great
reach
idea.
out to
Yeah.
their citizens as well, I think would be really great. So thank you, Pat.
And Pat, just a question on, I know the planning department is looking to hire a communication specialist to help with the next 2 years of outreach and education around the comprehensive plan update. Is doing something with our website, or the website is so far, it's really hard to find the information about the comp plan update. So I didn't know if you were working with the planning department to help them build out a better kind of forward facing page for it, but I know that's on their plans, but I didn't know if you and Jessica were working with them on that, or if that's something the consultant will help with.
Happy to check in on that. I think we can work with Jessica to get it featured on the homepage to give it some more visibility. And then in terms of organizing the information, we've had a few planning meetings with Scott Chesney and team to look at, you know, how they're going to present the actual documents when they're being prepared. They're taking the feedback on the front end, and then I think we'll start with the updates. But yes, I'll circle up with them, and we'll work on the visibility of the information. The social media stuff is pretty fleeting, so to the extent people can put it in newsletters and we can get it out to other PIOs and point them to an easy to use resource where the information's accessible, but also easy, plain language type stuff, I think will be key. So I'll report back on that at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So is there an executive session that's gonna be this afternoon?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So nothing at this point.
Can I do one quick miscellaneous?
The magic door opened.
Got notified yesterday, federal earmarks that the request for the second Fairchild entrance of Thorpe Road is officially on the request list. So that's just the first
First
hurdle.
Okay,
So that's on the House side. The Senate side is not yet posted, which would be the request for the stabilization center expansion. But the one is at least clear the first hurdle. There's a 4.8 request.
great. Thank you. Anything else? Not seeing anything, then we will adjourn for the morning and come back for our